Alright guys, so as you can see I've already done my other hand. Today we are going to cover shaping, the different shapes and how to achieve it. Because I'm doing shorter nails, I went ahead and left them long, that way I can go through each shape and still cut them down to the shape that I need. So I'm starting out with your basic coffin tips. This is what you'll see a lot of when ordering. It'll be these in French and stiletto, but these work for most of your basic shapes except for, tapered square. Those are a little wider at the top. So today we're going to cover stiletto, almond, ballerina, and coffin. So let's start with the thumb for coffin. I'm going to go ahead and cut these down just a little bit, just to give us a good starting off point where they're manageable. So, couple tips for shaping. You want to invest in good shaping files. Don't just use any old file because they're not all created equal. For shaping, I suggest a higher grit file, such as these. These are the Pana 8080 grit files, the Jumbo Zebra. These are my favorite. So the reason I like these, they're a coarser grit file, and what that means is they file away a lot more acrylic without as much pressure, and the reason you get that sharper shape is because you're moving the acrylic without having to push as hard on your file, so you're not bending it and flexing it, which isn't ruining your shape. So the coarser it is, the easier it moves the acrylic without you having to push it, basically. If you don't have access to one of these, your regular 100, 180 grit file will be okay. Just make sure that you use the 100 side. That'll be the coarser side. Otherwise, another thing that you can do, use your finger like this to guide your shaping and press with your entire finger, and that'll keep it from bending and give you a sharper shape. So first, let's go over coffin. The reason that it's called coffin is because it takes a coffin shape. So it'll be wider right here because your nail bed naturally goes in and then out at the base or at the free edge. So then you want your tip to come down and narrow. Now it looks a lot like ballerina. The difference is ballerina isn't as wide right here. So either you leave the side walls a little wider. Basically, ballerina needs to look like a ballet shoe when it's pointed up and down. It'll look like a ballet slipper. So it's basically coffin, just not as wide right here at the free edge. Stiletto and almond are pretty similar. One just has a more rounded edge, and you'll get more comfortable with the shapes as you go. So we're gonna start with coffin. Now we already have a pretty basic coffin shape here. So what you want to do, what I suggest for the free edge, if you want to make sure that it's straight and not slanted at all, a great way to file it is up and down instead of side to side, because when you go side to side, you get, the wobble, whatever. If you go this way, it's pretty parallel the whole way up and down. It's annoying and it grates on my nerves, but you will have a completely straight line. It'll make it even all the way across. Oh, that's annoying. Okay. Now, so for coffin, basically what you want to do is start the same as square, and basically every shape you're just pushing your file in a little bit more. So like for ballerina, you're basically only moving it a little bit. For coffin, a little sharper. Almond, sharper still. Round the edge off. Stiletto, complete point. That's all you're doing. It's basically just how many degrees you're pushing your file in. So now this is going to change once you lay acrylic on it, but you want to get your basic shape down before you do your acrylic. Saves you a lot of filing trouble later. That way you aren't having to file as much off after you lay it. So basically you want to start straight up and down and push your way in. Now you want to keep that file completely straight and just back and forth a straight line. You don't want to do just the edge, because then you're going to that's where those weird shapes come from. So you want to make sure you're covering the entire length and just pushing in varying degrees to get the shape that you want. Now I'm working on myself, so it's a little harder, but I'm going to go ahead and clean up these corners here to make sure I don't flood right here with acrylic. So you want, just quick tip, you want your tips to reach the edge of your nail bed, but you don't want them to go over. You want to leave a little space. You don't want them to meet that skin. Like, see here how that meets the skin? That's going to cause my acrylic to look all weird and wide. So you want to make sure you're filing that little corner off so that the tip doesn't meet the skin at all and you get that nice clean transition. So now for coffin, we're going to just point it in. We're going to push in. And you want to make sure that you're keeping your file straight up and down and not, you know, wobbling it, whatever. Let's see. All right, we'll go this way. So we're going to leave it straight and just push ever so slightly in on the free edge. Until we get that shape that we want. Like mine's not quite there. And your tips are never going to go on 100% straight, but your file can straighten that out for you. So now if you look at that, I have a little scarring right here, so it kind of makes mine look a little wonky, but I'm still not super happy because see how this side goes in a little more than this side. So we're just going to give it a little bit more, but again, make sure you're doing the entire sidewall, not just the tip. And a good way to make sure you're doing that is to keep it at this angle, but straight up and down. So that way, see how I'm touching the entire thing? That way you're not missing any where it touches your finger. And now we have a coffin shape. I don't know if you can tell. See, there's your coffin. Now, this one is pretty similar. It's already pretty close to a ballerina. So we're just going to go ahead and do the same thing here. This one, basically, all you need to do is get rid of those edges that make it look kind of wider and make it look like a coffin shape, because we don't want coffin on this one. So we're going to get rid of those corners, same as you do for all of them. And you want to make sure that you're seasoning your file. Use a buffing block or an old file and run the edges on it, and that's going to take off that sharp edge that you can cut people with. Okay? Trust me, I've done it. Everybody's done it. It's awful. It makes you feel awful. So I'm just taking off that corner right now, just to get rid of that overhang, because these tips never fit me right. So they all need to be filed down a little bit because they just never seem to fit on my hands right. Now when you do that, you want to make sure that you get a nice clean line, that you aren't just taking the tip off or taking that corner off. So now for ballerina, we only want to file away this wide part. That way it looks like a ballet slipper when we're done. First, let me take care of this edge. Now see where I'm going back and forth? See how crooked that is? That's why we don't do that. But it bothers my brain to do it up and down. Gives me cold chills, so. All right, now we've got our nice flat edge that looks like a ballet slipper. And we're gonna file our side where it meets the nail bed. See how I'm not touching this part yet? I'm just doing up here because I don't want to touch this part. I really don't want to have to file that part at all. That way I don't lose any of that width. I'm going to do the same thing over here and just get rid of some of that side where it meets the nail bed. Now you can, I don't know if you can see the difference with the shaping and how that just kind of goes straight down. But see how I got a little wobble right here where I didn't finish that line? So I'm going to go back and fix that. And then you just want to give it one good run all the way down the side just to make sure that your line is nice and clean. Ooh. On both sides. Now, we have ballerina. Now, let's do some stiletto. I'm going to cut these just a little bit shorter, just to kind of help me out here. So, because I am doing a shorter stiletto set on this hand in a minute. Now, when you're doing stiletto, what you can do is take your straight edge clippers I don't know if you can see the difference here. See how they don't have that curve that most nail clippers have? They're completely straight across. That's going to help you with your cutting and your shaping. So I want stiletto, so I am going to basically cut a rough shape out. You're not going to be able to get it perfect, so you want to make sure that the point of the stiletto is lined up dead center with the bone of your finger, and that's a good way to measure that and make sure that it's in the right place. So just rough estimate of where the center of that's going to be, and just like aim that way. You get close and then your file will do the rest. So let's see. I'm going to take a little bit more off. You're not going to be able to get it perfect with the clippers, but this does help. And you don't want to use the curved clippers because what that's going to do is give you like bubbles. So these are like $2 at Walmart for the straight edge ones. Just keep an eye out for the line. So for stiletto, basically same thing. You're going to clean up that line right there. Now, for some stiletto, some people are going to want it rounder, and to do that, you're just basically going to make circles like half moons with your file and rock it back and forth, and do that on both sides. And then we can clean up the tip later, but for right now, we're just focusing on our sides and rocking that back and forth. Now you can see we kind of have a basic stiletto shape. And then what you can do is just keep rocking it until you get the point that you want. Now that's for the rounder stiletto. I know mine are the rounder stiletto, but I'm not usually a big fan. Oh, I didn't get my tip here. I'm not usually a big fan. Let me finish that. I missed a spot. You're just going to keep rocking that until you get it. There we go. So we have it close. When you get it close, what you're going to do, make sure that it's lined up with the center of the finger, the point, and then you're just going to bring that in and keep it straight. We're not rocking at this point. We're keeping it straight because we want that point, and we don't want the end to round out. So you're just going to make a teepee. Now, don't worry if your point's a little bit off. You can just push it to the left or right with your file, whichever way it needs to go. And there's your stiletto. Now, if you want more of a tapered stiletto, not quite as round, all you're going to do is not do that rocking motion. You're not going to do that half moon shape. You're going to go straight. Same way you did with the ballerina and the coffin. You're going to keep it straight and just do it completely diagonal. Basically, you're making a triangle. Same thing, you want to keep it at that. You want to keep your file this way, but straight up and down. And that's going to give you more of this tapered stiletto look. Sorry, I have to keep turning it around to check my shape and see where my point is. So basically, I'm just taking that rounded part off of this one. Pretty much, you can get pretty much any shape out of coffin except for square or tapered square. So if you start out with coffin, you can go pretty much anywhere from there. Like, if you have coffin and you file too much, just make it stiletto, make it ballerina. So there's our stiletto, which is pretty sharp. Now real quick, I'm going to do another stiletto right here so that you can see how to do almond, because we're going to start off with the stiletto. Well, we're not going to start off with the stiletto. Basically, you're doing the same thing, except you're not tapering it. Let me show you what I mean. You're going to use your clippers to carve out that shape. Basically, close enough, right? But this, you just want to, instead of having this super sharp tip right here, you're just going to round it off. You can cut it off, whatever, and then you're just going to round it. So we're getting rid of that line, same as before. But with almond, you don't want it to be that tapered. You want to do that rocking motion and that half moon shape. So we start right here. Now remember, line it up and see where you want your point to be. And then we're just going to rock it back and forth. Same thing on both sides. Now we're pretty close here. Basically, all you're going to do is make sure that there aren't any sharp edges or flat lines. So you're going to take your file and do the same thing, rock it back and forth in that half moon. Sorry, it's a little easier if I do it this way. You're just going to rock it back and forth all the way across the top and make sure that you get rid of any points. And then we have a nice almond shape. Oh, wait. I got a little bit underneath. But like, so you see, if I try to file one little piece of it because I see a point, I end up with a line. So you need to make sure if you're doing it all the way across. That way you get that nice uniform and you're not filing and filing and filing more lines into it. Because then you're just going to be going in a terrible circle of trying to fix it. So, there we have coffin, ballerina, just like the ballerina slipper, stiletto, and almond. Now, for square, basically, you're gonna use the French manicure tips, and you're just gonna level out the sides, make them come straight out. For tapered square, same thing, you're just gonna bring it in a little bit. Remember, every shape, you're starting here, and you're just varying degrees of pushing in. So, if you have any questions, comment down below. Don't forget I have my big giveaway coming up. We're only a few people away, so don't forget to comment, share, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you have any ideas for some of my next videos, I'm open to suggestions. You guys let me know what you want to see. Thank you.